Hi, Catherine. How are you?
Hi, hi, how are you? It's so
Good.
nice to be here. My name is Tati. Everyone calls me Tati. My, official name is Catherine, but I never use it. My film is from a series that I created for the Children's Museum of the Arts called Creative Spaces, and the film is called ACQ Bread Studio. Um, and Tyler Lee Steinbrenner is the focus and the profile that I'm doing for this film. I am uh, an American, but I wasn't born here. Our family immigrated to Brooklyn from Vietnam, from war-torn Vietnam, and I grew up in Brooklyn. Well, it was the wild, wild west. And for me, it was like the most beautiful place on earth because no one's trying to kill you. There's no bombs running, and all the buildings were intact. So I didn't speak a word of English. It was full on immersion. So if you can imagine, like this kid being, okay, this is totally different. Nobody understands the rules of the game I play, and I have to kind of adapt. And it kind of impacted me a lot in my kind of vision of like what the world looked like, as a true outsider. I'm not talking about like philosophical outsiders that you can actually speak the language. You're talking about somebody who's sort of like have to discover from the ground up, what is this? How do I define this? How do I ask for this? So it became sort of second nature to me to use the language of communication, imagery, and questioning and sort of curiosity. That became kind of embedded in my education in terms of who I was on top of the academics. So parallel to academic sort of learning, there's this sort of sensibility of uh, inquiring and kind of interfacing with the world. And so I think the film medium became kind of the culmination of everything.
Yeah, I was
That was
just
kind of a long explanation, but I hope it was okay.
no, that was good because I was just about to say, oh, that I'm thinking film immediately. Like this, it's a natural evolution for you. And what inspired you to make this film?
Well, I feel as if the topic of food and food insecurity in this kind of day and age is a reality. And I wanted to actually, first of all, show like Tyler's art practice, the studio practice as bread making, but also the idea that you try to control the um your relationship with food, like what you put into the food that you make, how you um ingest things, how you can not let somebody else define, okay, this is food and put all that preservatives in, and kind of understand that there are stories coming to you with these kind of foods that you're eating. So the ingredients that you put in are equally as important as how, the end product is made, and the culmination of everything that brings together a beautiful product, like a loaf of bread, and all the story that's infused with it. That's sort of like my inspiration of making it. And my background also is that I grew up with my parents, and the way we survived in a very strange foreign land was with a relationship to food. My mom became a wonderful restaurateur, and she became like one of the first pioneers of bringing Vietnamese food into Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn. That was last year's film. So to continue that tradition of like how important food is to, you know, to myself, not just as like nourishment for the body, but also as nourishment of the spirit and of, sharing and giving and building community. That's what inspired me to make this film.
And what was your biggest challenge while making it?
And the biggest challenge was Tyler's schedule. Coordinating schedule. Well, like I knew I wanted to really, he's so interesting, he has so much to say. And he was very elusive. because he's basically operating as a bread, speakeasy. He's not a bona fide business as yet. He became a business later, but when he started it, it was very interesting. His whole story, which people will get to watch. But I kept asking, over and over again, could you meet with me? Could you do this? Could you, And he was like, no, not now. And it took a year to finally nailed it down and, going in person, pursuing my subject, so to speak, all the while really being patient, like, watching the bread rise, being patient with Tyler in order that he, was able to have the time in his schedule to accommodate the need for filming. That was my biggest challenge, waiting.
And what was your experience in the subject matter that you set out to tackle? Had you already had experience with uh, at least baking, or I know you said your mom was a restaurateur.
Okay, I say my mom is a restaurateur, but that, I know that I have the sensibility, but it took me a long time in order to be where she is, and I'm not even there because she's amazing. She has a degree like in, cake decorating and, fine sugar, like, and chocolatier. She's like a master chef, as well as being an amazing, just savory chef. So I've always been comfortable in the kitchen. In Vietnam, I remember being very young, and she had dabbled in having a little bit of a pastry shop, like, so she would get up really early at 6 in the morning, and we'd be rolling croissant, like, and she would make these things for me, and I would be like, well, someday I would be like as, you know accomplished as my mother. Well, that never happened, but during COVID, we were forced to make our own bread, and I really, that was like a big bread movement during, like, when everybody's locked down online, and I really was reminded about the process of, you know the bread, and not only that, the wheat, where it came from, and the water, and just sort of being, even though the starter, if you really thought about it, that starter has been carried on from, like, one generation to another to make that loaf of bread over and over again. So that was the continuation of, like, the legacy of what my mother gave me, which is the love of food, which is the stories embedded in what I eat every day. That inspired me to really kind of share that with, my community, and Tyler does it so perfectly and on a larger scale.
What impact are you hoping to have with this film?
Obviously, one of my mission was, and also for the children's museum, is community building, sharing our vision of what a healthy, you know equity in the world, of peace, of access to food, of access to music and art looks like. So this is why I make these shorts film. Also, the part of what I did this for was, for the Children's Museum of the Arts, where we're trying to hope to bring quality, kind of experience to the next generation, especially with the funding cut to the arts. The museum's mission was to bring in, um, a resource. It's called the Look Make Channel, and we have short films for with art topic of, educating, um, the children, and whether or not you had, let's say the school had a budget for the arts, they would be able to leverage, the museum's Look Make show in order to teach, in order to expose, in order to build community, which with art as a topic, of conversation. So,
Amazing. So I think that also goes into my next question, what other projects are in store for you?
I'm just completed my residency at the, at the Children's Museum of the Arts, and I'm looking to continue my own personal video projects, and I'm working on a graphic novels that addresses sort of my childhood into being a refugees coming to America, with my sensibility of like everything was different. The food I had access to, the fresh market, the change of climate, the change of the light, everything. And it's very cinematic. But for the moment, I feel like this graphic novel represents sort of like a seed or a storyboard for, maybe a bigger film. But so that's where I'm heading. Like, I don't know, I'm sending my resume into the void, so we'll see what happens. Like, we'll check back maybe next year.
That sounds amazing. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Really great to meet you, and you're a great festival, and I'm so honored to be part of that for the second year in a row. Yeah, but thank you
Exactly.
so
Two
much.
times. Amazing. Thank you.